chunking your golf shots, coming too far from the inside and striking the ground before the ball is one of the biggest killers to your score out there. So in this video with special guest Ollie Tucker, we're going to show you one of the main reasons that this may be happening and exactly how to fix it. Let's get stuck in. So that one was well struck, mate. I'm going to feel like the angle of attack was pretty reasonable. 3 degrees down. Path, 2 degrees into out. Face was a little bit open, which is why it hung out to the right, which is where I like to spend all my time in those right bunkers. Now, we do get a lot of players who, in the downswing, in the attempt to come from the inside and hit a draw, they actually tend to start moving their body, specifically their head, well behind the golf ball. I'm sure that delivers more of an inside path, but we're just talking about, before we start this video, about the 3 ways that the spine works, right? So I want you to detail this for the players of, if I was to set up and face in this direction, if I'm a player who's trying to come from the inside, now what is the possible flaw that can encourage a path, this number here, to be sometimes 10, 15 degrees into out? It's too much.
Yeah, right? I mean, 15 wouldn't be a record, but...
So if I'm sitting up here, show me how the player who's struggling with a path that's too far from the inside, from trying to get behind it, how they would generally move.
Yeah, so they might often turn quite well, so they might complete quite a decent turn. But from there, if they know they've got to try and come from the inside, that we have this forward lean, if you like.
Yeah.
And now, as you can see there, head's gone way behind the ball, almost sort of outside your right foot. And if you do it from the other angle as well, what that does, as you then tip forward, the arms get pretty low down here, club's a long way behind you, so yes, you've got all the chance in the world to swing it out that way. It could be a long way that way, but you get some issues with low point control being a long way behind the golf ball, and that really compensates a strike. It's probably not going to be 3 down, it could be several up.
Yeah, correct. And the spine works in 3 ways, and demonstrating that from face on. And I think it would be valuable if we could just show that using that stick here. I get set up to this golf ball here. We would see the professional golfer maintain a centered head generally to the top, but a lot of recreational golfers struggle with that, right? And we will see that in this instance, they will have the turning element, but they might not have the tilt. Or, what's the last piece we're missing
There
here?
certainly won't be extending as much, that's it.
So the extension. Now, this is not a reverse pivot, is it?
No.
Okay. And a lot of players are scared to get this feeling of extension, but it's important to understand that that is what makes up a centered pivot, isn't it? Yeah. So if I was to isolate this, talk us through simplistic fashions of me standing up dead straight with the club across my shoulders here. We'll get back to that video in just a second, but I just want to tell you quickly about my online training platform, Perform Golf. Being a player myself and going through the struggles of working on my game all the way up to playing on tour, I understand that nagging feeling that you're putting work in that's not actually making a difference to your swing and your golf game. So that's why I've created an all-encompassing membership covering every aspect of the game to help you fast track your progress and get you shooting lower scores. It's available on all the app stores and on the web. The link is down below. So sign up now, experience the difference yourself. Let's get back to the video.
So from here and in this example, they might have enough rotation, so you can rotate the spine there and you've got your shoulders 90 degrees.
Perfect.
Rather than then going this way, which is what we're seeing, we need to keep this extension and you have this tilt in that direction. So maintaining that spine angle in your backswing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the element of what's called front bend, which we create at address, so that would be the bend from the hips, at the top of the golf swing, there is no front bend. That's what keeps your head centered to the top here. Because then if I just face you and remove that tilt while I'm standing up dead straight. And yes, it might be slightly more challenging to process that and go, well, I thought I just needed to turn off the ball. You'll be very surprised. If you just focus on keeping a relatively centered head, your body will coordinate these movements together, correct?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So let's say that I am that player who is coming way from the inside and I'll do one. Let's have a look at this path number here. That's 2.6 degrees out. I'm going to feel 0 extension or movement of that upper body towards the target. So I'm going to stay with my chest down, right? So staying chest down. And I actually hit that pretty well. We should see that ball hopefully turn right to left, which we did, but you can see path 16 out to the right.
Yes, that's, I think when you get past double figures or near double figures with club path, that is well on the limit of how much shape you can get. And you've hit that pretty well being a good player, but the attack angle's still creeping up.
Yeah.
And we'll get players that won't strike it that good, be a long way behind the ball, 4 or 5 up, hitting the ground several inches back.
Yeah. And we'll find that a lot of players are hesitant to change this because they might hit driver good.
Correct, yeah. Well, so with the driver, that kind of works. And with the ball slightly further forward, it allows the club path to just straighten out a little bit. So not bad for the driver, but if you want to strike it better on the ground, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble.
Correct. So let's say the recreational golfer out there likes the idea of practice but doesn't have the time to get out there too much. If you are this player, for the next round that you play, it's fine to do this with a driver, okay?
Sure.
Because you're comfortable, you can work the hands a little bit, you might hit this push draw, at least you're going to have an upward angle. That's fine. But let's say that you're struggling with your irons. Now, what should they feel? What should they work on throughout their swing to achieve more of a downward strike on the golf ball?
So like you say, just maintaining that centerness with the head. So as you take it away, and if they make a good turn, where we had the stick here before, it's almost creating or maintaining that like left ear on the stick.
Yeah.
And where before, if we go around to the camera again, and we go into this position here, as you'd rotate back, if you went for that bend that way, big gap here, almost like in a wedge shape. We're trying to lose some of that and stay a lot closer, a lot more straighter from this angle with that back, with the spine angle.
Correct. And just to clarify, a reverse pivot is when the hips go away from the target here, guys. So just because your upper spine is extending towards the target, that is not a reverse pivot. I feel like that's a bit of a misconception with players out there.
Yeah, there's certainly on this instance anyway, the player didn't have sort of this sway with the hip first. They were still rotating quite well, but with this motion with the upper body.
Yeah, and a great checkpoint for this is, we can use that stick actually. If I make a functional turn to the top, there is always generally going to be a slight angle between the top of my spine and my lower body. So if you can put the stick on there to demonstrate that. Now, a reverse pivot would be when the player does this.
Yeah.
Yes, you're extending, but you're also about to pop your back out. We don't want to do that too much. So this player here, they can use a stick up against their front ear. That's going to help them make more of a centered pivot. What about a feel? What feel could they have?
It describes me as the player who was an ex-athlete and jumped a lot.
Yeah.
Felt like they were going high jumping like Frosby flop almost.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind that one. That worked for her, certainly.
Yeah.
So didn't mind that at all. And they moved quite well, but rather than going this way, it's definitely like they were over the pole.
Big step. And I think that's fantastic because that's a great visual that you can build before you go and perform it. And it's interesting that you say that because if you relate this movement to any other sport, that's how you get your power. Let's say, not a sport, but let's say I'm chopping wood.
Exactly.
I don't just keep my front bend and use my arms. The way that I get my power is by extending my spine. That allows my arms to travel further, which then allows me to compress my body into the ground and get the power. Rory's a great example.
Exactly. Even working in the gym where they're sort of slamming the ball down, you're not here just lifting it above your head and throwing it. If you're trying to put it through the floor, it's up, extending, and then you can create a lot more speed and a lot more power.
I think, let's say the feeling and the idea that the chest is going to the top would be one example. But let's say you wanted to create a visual for players who learn that way. I always use the imagery of a spotlight. And imagine there's a big spotlight on our chest facing down at the ball, and we want to get this player who would tend to stay too much in this front bend and come from behind. If you imagine where that spotlight is, it would be pointing down to the ground. If this player was from the address position to go, I'm going to try and get my spotlight facing the sky.
Yeah.
Well, then all of a sudden, now we start to get this extension look.
Yeah, correct.
This feels so much more powerful.
Yeah. And even the visual, I think we might have chatted about before, was having the stick placed that way and making sure you can see the ball relatively under the stick rather than leaning off to the side here, sort of peeking at the back a little bit, ball too much.
Correct.
On that note as well, if you get the ball with a logo or something at the front,
that's great.
Rather than looking this way, it's trying to extend, almost see the front of the golf ball.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So you can see a collection of drills there, guys, to really work on achieving the same thing, which is to mitigate the club path getting too far in to out. So the push drawers of the golf ball. We're going to go one more from here. I'm going to rehearse that feeling. I like that logo idea that you had. So I'm going to get this logo of the golf ball, face it more towards the screen, and just make sure that as I set up to it, I'm getting the feel that my chest is going to the sky. And I can also see that front logo of the golf ball. That's helping me extend. It's actually helping me rotate as well because I'm ensuring that my head is swiveling. Let's put it all together and see what the path is as a result. Certainly sounded more powerful, that's for sure. Club path 0.6 degrees. You know what? Maybe I need this in my swing.
I've seen worse demos.